Part 111. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 1101. Chapter 1101 Finale, 1. The long queue to welcome the bride is as far as the eye can see. Fan Kinjao walked all the way and finally arrived at the palace. As the sedan landed, the curtain was lifted, and before Fan Kinjao could take off, he saw the familiar beautiful hand in his memory blooming quietly before his eyes again like an epiphyllum. Fan Kinjao pursed his lips, stretched out his hand, and held the hand tightly. When Fan Kinjao stepped out of the sedan chair with the support of Bailey Fengming, he was greeted by greetings from all the civil and military officials. Long live the emperor, long live, long live. The queen is 1,000 years old, 1,000 years old, 1,000 years old. I wish your majesty and queen to be united forever and grow old hand in hand. The deafening sound seemed to make even the road under his feet tremble. Fortunately, Fan Kinjao's hand was held tightly by Bailey Fengming. Royal wedding ceremonies have always been complicated and complicated. After a series of procedures were completed, Fan Kinjao and Bailey Fengming came to Fenji Palace and finally had a chance to breathe. In the quiet room, the only sound left was each other's breathing. Bailey Fengming looked at Fan Kinjao on the wedding bed, his dark eyes so hot that Fan Kinjao didn't dare to look directly. Bailey Fengming walked up to her, reached out and carefully took off the phoenix crown on her head. Yesterday, my mother specifically told me to take off this phoenix crown as soon as possible. My head hurts after wearing it for a day. Fan Kinjao shook his head. It's okay. Bailey Fengming looked at her and smiled. I have asked someone to prepare hot water. You go and wash up first. When I come out, I will eat something with you. Fan Kinjao nodded and stood up, following the nanny in the palace to the side hall. When he came back, Bailey Fengming had already taken off his wedding robe and put on Fan Kinjao's familiar white robe. It was just different from the previous one. Although the current white robe was still spotless, it was still spotless. The lifelike auspicious dragon pattern flickered on and off on the white robe. Seeing Fan Kinjao standing there in a daze, Bailey Fengming asked, "What are you thinking about?" Fan Kinjao said, "It's different after all. You are the emperor now." Bailey Fengming held her hand and sat down at the round table, touched her hair and said, "To you, I will always be me." Fan Kinjao nodded and smiled. She knows. She always knew. During the meal, the palace maid was already waiting for the dishes, but before the palace maid picked up the chopsticks, Bailey Fengming habitually prepared the dishes she liked according to Fan Kinjao's preferences. One clip went into her bowl. The palace people on the side were all shocked. How could the emperor give food to others? But Bailey Fengming just did it naturally. After Fan Kinjao finished eating, he not only continued to put new dishes into her bowl, but also carefully told her the name of each dish so that she could eat it when she wanted to eat it in the future. But you can ask the imperial kitchen to do it at any time. Half an hour later, the palace man cleared the table and left in confusion. In the palace, it became quiet again. Fan Kinjao turned his head and looked at the wedding bed where he slept. There were lotus seeds and longans scattered on it. When he was thinking about how to sleep on it, he was already picked up by Bailey Fengming. Bailey Fengming saw through what she was thinking at a glance. He leaned down slightly and said, "You'll know when you fall asleep." Fan Kinjao was stunned for a moment, but the next second he put his arms around his neck and leaned against his chest. Bailey Fengming's heart trembled, and he couldn't help but kiss the red lips. Outside the house, the night is getting dark. Inside the house, the spring weather is just right. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 1102. Chapter 1102 Finale, 2. It's another year, spring. Fenji Palace has already been filled with people, and the palace people are busy inside and outside. The spring season has just begun, and everyone is sweating out from their busy work. In the bedroom, Fan Kinjao's painful moans could be heard from time to time. Just hearing it made people tremble. When Tao Yuxian came with Hua Yuelian, he happened to see the Empress Dowager guarding the courtyard. Although this was Fan Kinjao's first child as Empress, the Empress Dowager came to guard the door in person, so the treatment was a bit, it's too high. The Empress Dowager was also very anxious, but when she saw Tao Yuxian and Hua Yuelian, she suppressed her worries and said, "The AI family has sent people to inform the Emperor. We are guarding here, but the people inside are restrained. How about you go to the side hall with the AI family and wait for the news?" "Yes, I obey my orders." Tao Yuxian knew that the Queen Mother was doing this for Xiao Qinjiao's good, so he quickly followed Hua Yuelian to the side hall to wait. The side hall is not far from the main hall. Sitting in the main hall, you can still vaguely hear Fan Qinjiao's painful murmurs. Although the three of them are chatting, their ears are listening carefully to what is happening in the main hall. Movement. Soon, there was no sound from the main hall. Lily hurriedly came in to report to the Queen Mother, "Queen Mother, she has fainted." "How can it be a trivial matter to pass out after giving birth?" The Empress Dowager and Tao Yuxian quickly stood up and walked towards the main hall. Unexpectedly, they saw a group of people kneeling in front of Bailey Fengming just after they entered the courtyard. "Your Majesty, the delivery room is an ominous place, you can't go in. The judge from the Ji Lao Yuan has arrived, and the people are inside. Your Majesty, please think twice. How could Bailey Fengming be stopped by these people in front of him?" He entered the bedroom without any hesitation. When he walked around the bead curtain, he saw Fan Qinjiao lying on the bed. At this time, Fan Qinjiao's lips were pale, his face was bloodless, and even his breath was getting weaker and weaker. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." When the midwife and palace maid who delivered the baby saw the person coming, they were so frightened that they knelt on the ground. Bailey Fengming ignored everyone and went straight to the bed. Seeing this, Ji Hongliao quickly ordered the people in the room, "Do whatever you need to do. If you miss the queen, none of you will survive." After hearing this, the people in the room quickly got up and got busy again. Bailey Fengming lifted up his robe and knelt on the ground on one knee, holding her slightly cold hand. "Ayao, I've been waiting for you all my life, you can't be one step ahead of me." At this time, Fan Qinjiao was repeating the events of his previous life in his dream. Still being used and deceived by Bailey Rongs, still being played with by Fan Swinning, still in the memory, the coldness gradually shrouded by death. It's just that in the dream, she was obviously dead, but she could still see what happened next. She saw Bailey Fengming leading people back to the palace, forcing the palace to commit regicide, and forcing Bailey Rongs and Fan Swinning to die. However, Bailey Fengming did not stay in the palace, but went to protect the country alone. Temple. At the Hyuguo Temple, he ate fasting and chanted the Buddha's name every day, and recited the rebirth mantra over and over again in front of the Buddha. Reborn curse. Hope for the rebirth of the dead and remember the reincarnation of the wronged souls. I don't know when Master Xingyun stood behind Bailey Fengming, clasped his hands and recited Amitabha, everyone has his destiny, so why should the donor be so persistent? Even if he comes back from the dead, he is just following the rules. Bailey Fengming closed her eyes and said, "My Ayao is so smart. If she were to come back again, she would kill her enemies and see her way out." Master Luck frowned, "The destiny of heaven cannot be violated, and the punishment of heaven cannot be broken." Bailey Fengming was silent for a long time, slowly opened his eyes, stared at the Buddha for a moment and said, "If there is a punishment from heaven, I will pay it for her. I just hope that she can be reborn and return home safely and happily." After saying that, he took out the dagger from his arms and stabbed it into his chest. As the blood slowly flowed out, Bailey Fengming fell into a pool of blood. Master Xingyun looked at Bailey Fengming, who was on the verge of death, full of pity. If she really comes back, who can be sure that she will see through everything? Bailey Fengming smiled faintly. This time, I will stay with her forever. Suddenly, Fan Qinjiao opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Bailey Fengming's handsome face, which was filled with anxiety but also revealed a hint of joy. Fan Qinjiao just looked at him quietly for a long time before he said, "So it's you, it's always been you. It is you who brought me rebirth. It was you who overcame the heavenly calamity and resisted the heavenly punishment for me." Wow wow wow, wow wow wow. The cry of a child is loud and clear. The palace people all knelt on the ground in an instant, shouting in unison, "Congratulations to the emperor, the queen is happy to have a dragon son." End of this chapter.